Welcome to Skytalkers. Here are your hosts, Charlotte and Caitlin.
Hello and welcome to Skytalkers. I'm your host, Charlotte.
Hey everyone, I'm your other host, Caitlin, and welcome to this episode where we are bringing you a roundtable interview with the showrunner, creator, and writer of The Acolyte, Leslye Headland. And guys, we've got a story for you about this interview.
Also, we do sound a little different, just FYI. We're in our hotel room in Los Angeles. Last night was the premiere of The Acolyte. We saw 2 episodes. We won't spoil anything. I will say this roundtable doesn't tiptoe around story things.
Yeah.
Like I would tread lightly, okay?
Yep. If you're not looking for any kind of spoilers for The Acolyte or any kind of hints about what's coming, I would save this interview until after you've seen the first 2 episodes.
Yes. Wait until June 4th. But if you're intrigued, want to hear Leslye interviews, everything like that. She's amazing. She's so cool. And we're so lucky that we had this opportunity to talk with her. But we need to tell you about the situation in which we talked to her. Okay. So the roundtable interview, this is not our first rodeo. We've done this before, right? Mm-hmm. And what happens is they will send us a time that they are able to fit us into a slot. And so Caitlin and I were spending 2 days total in Los Angeles for the Acolyte premiere. It's a short little trip. And our flights were going to get in around 10. So we get the email that we're going to be able to talk to Leslye at 11:37.
The day before.
So
actually the afternoon before.
The afternoon before.
Yeah, so we got the email confirming our time slot at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And we were leaving at 4 a.m. the next morning.
Yes. So there was no way that we could refigure out how we were going to be able to do this, because it's very important, obviously, for us to have this opportunity, and we really wanted to do it. We're such huge fans
Leslye
of Leslye.
Headland.
It's Leslye Headland. I feel like we've talked about her on the podcast so much. Anyway, so if you can do the math, we're getting in at 10. I am checking a bag. There's no time for us to go to our hotel in Hollywood from the airport in LAX. So we're doing the freaking interview in the airport.
Yeah, we were trying. Charlotte and I were texting about it the night before, and Charlotte was like, "I think we'll make it."
I was like, "There's a world in which we make it."
And I texted her, I was like, "Charlotte, we are doing this interview in the airport. If we're doing it, it's in the airport. There's not a world where we can make it back to our hotel." And yeah, you guys have heard us talk a lot about the George Lucas interview or video that he submitted to the Phantom Menace panel at Star Wars Celebration 2019, and how our headcanon is that he did that video from an airport. And I told Charlotte, we both said, we were like, this is our George Lucas moment. We're going to do it in the airport, and it's going to be great. And it happened.
We did it in the airport.
I can't say if it was great.
In the exit terminal before the baggage claim, because baggage claim was too loud. Like, trying to find a place to do it was insane. I haven't opened the audio. No idea. I might have to re-record the question that we asked. But I feel like, it was crazy. We had suitcases behind us, people lugging their suitcases. And my computer is ancient. I haven't bought a new computer in 10 years.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hold a charge. And did you know, you might not know this, LAX locks up all of the chargers except for this one port by the baggage claim. I find a little bit of juice down there. We get an email that we have to check in now. It's early.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, finally, I asked someone in a desperate plea, an airport worker, if there was an outlet in the area that we had deemed good for recording. And we found one, but it was right by the door that you exit, like your finality, basically, when you leave what you've gone through TSA, and you're exiting into the baggage claim area. So there's like this little corridor. I will post a photo because it was so crazy. And there's an outlet there, but like basically you're crossing the line that you're not allowed to cross by using the outlet.
Yeah, we had asked her if she could unlock one of the outlets for us, and she said, No, I will not do that. But there is one outlet in this by the exit door. And she said, they might ask you to unplug. And we were like, okay, whatever.
Whatever. Like, we just need some juice. Wouldn't you know, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. Wouldn't you know, we finally get on with Leslye Headland. It's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of hurry up and wait situation. Everyone always says that, and it's very true. We get to our question, and wouldn't you know, the TSA agent comes over and starts to yell at us about the plug while I'm asking Leslye her question. This whole thing is really about 1 minute of asking.
Yeah.
And this is where it happens. It's just so funny. Hopefully you can't tell on the audio, but it's a little chaotic, and it was so funny. I don't know. It's so crazy.
Yeah, it's a story for sure. See, where we were originally sitting before we realized the computer was going to die, with, like Charlotte said, in a corner, and we had the backdrop of the wall behind us. So you could tell that we were somewhere different, like not in our room or even in a hotel room or something, but it was just a white wall behind us. It was, fine, all things considered. But when we had to move to the plug, the only way the plug would reach to the computer is to not be facing the wall. So we literally had our suitcases behind us.
It was just psycho.
And you could see all the people walking. I'm going to be honest, it's not my proudest moment.
No,
but
it's really embarrassing. I feel like we're talking too much about this, but you just have to know it was a chaotic vibe.
Yeah, we finished and I was like...
I was sweating.
That was the most stressful thing I've ever experienced in my life.
It was literally more stressful than like Hayden Christensen and anything like that.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Well, because so Charlotte's asking the question and
Caitlin's taking one for the team and handling...
One of the TSA agents, when she comes out and she is looking at me, because she's already told us to leave twice. And we're like, five more minutes. And she's like, fine. And then she comes out the third time and she's like, now is the time, you must leave now. And Charlotte's literally in the middle of the question. And you're on video during these things, even though they just do audio, you're on video. So I'm sure Leslye is seeing me like panic looking off screen towards someone going, yeah, okay, yeah. And then, the TSA agent went back into the corridor or whatever she was. And I was like, I just need Leslye to answer our question because maybe she's looking at our screen right now. And then I can go and unplug. But the other piece of the story is that because we were in such a weird position with our suitcases and the computer balancing on another suitcase, my foot was so asleep that when I got up to go unplug the thing, and I'm trying to be stealthy and like not be too even more distracting on our video screen right now, and I literally almost fell over because my foot was so asleep.
Anyway, crazy times.
It was wild. But
nothing like recording in an airport. The dedication that we had for this. Yeah, we're never doing that again. Also, like, again, just as ideally we would have done this in like an airport lounge, but because I checked a bag, we had to go through. It was so bad. So I feel like it's a story of dedication. It's a story of how much we love this podcast. It's a story of
desperation.
It's desperation. It's a journey. It's I don't know. Anyway, something. Acolyte, really good.
It's very good.
Like extremely good. So we're very obsessed. We cannot wait to talk about it more on the podcast, which we will. We'll be bringing you weekly episodes. We can't wait. We just are so excited. Mm-hmm. So get excited about that. And here is our roundtable interview, which people ask great questions. We're so thankful for the rest of our roundtable participants. Here's our roundtable interview with Leslye Headland.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
So my question for you is, how did your work on previous shows such as Russian Doll influence your vision and direction for The Acolyte?
How did my work on other shows shape the vision? I mean, certainly Russian Doll, I'd say. That was an intricate story, obviously, with the Groundhog Day element, having to keep track of this storyline that sort of spiraled down into the heart of what the story was about. And I hope we've achieved sort of the Star Wars version of that with this storyline, with the Rashomon elements and seeing things from two different sides, both between Amandala's characters. Am I allowed to say that? I am. Okay, great. Sorry, you guys. I'm still unclear on what I'm allowed to talk about. So where was I? I was talking about, the duality and kind of flipping back and forth between who's good and who's bad. This is a point of view of one character. This is the other point of view from another character. So that's I would say that prepared me really well for the story we ended up telling here.
Thank you.
Hi, Trisha Barr for Fangirls Going Rogue podcast. You, in The Acolyte, you're using one of my favorite archetypes, the witch. A lot of current storytelling is challenging patriarchal tropes about witches. What do you want to bring to the cultural perspective of witches?
Well, I think that they, of course they're witches, and that's an element that George and Dave created with the Clone Wars. But I do think that my version of it is more about a collective that utilizes the Force differently than the Jedi do and would rather be left alone so that they can develop their own way of manipulating it, use it, whether it's for good or bad is kind of left up to the audience's interpretation of them. So I guess that's how I would be challenging the perspective.
Hi, this is George and Josh Bate with the Hollow Files. Leslye, thank you so much. Really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
It seems that one of the great tenets of working at Lucasfilm is collaboration with so many different departments, individuals, things like that. As you worked on The Acolyte, did you consult with other filmmakers who had directed and written other Star Wars stories? I know Rian Johnson had directed one of your first scripts and then obviously did The Last Jedi. I'm not sure if you consulted with him or other Star Wars writers, directors in crafting The Acolyte.
Well, it's interesting. I worked so closely with my designers, and all of them were very well versed in either their fandom for Star Wars or their understanding of it aesthetically. And also, they were very familiar with the aesthetic of the High Republic as well. So we did a lot of trial and error. We did a lot of collaboration. We did an enormous amount of presentations to each other so that all the departments were on the same page. So I do think that really was the key to making a show like this one. You can't do it on your own. It's got to be between you and your team.
Hi, James Burns from Jedi News here. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. So my question for you is, there's a lot of people out there that have never ever read anything from the High Republic because they just, tune into the films and watch content on Disney Plus. So how would you pitch The Acolyte to them?
Oh, I would say pitching The Acolyte to people who are unfamiliar with the High Republic, I would say this is a fresh entry point. It could definitely elevate the show if you've had the experience of immersing yourself in that in beautiful world. But you certainly don't need to have read anything or know any references to it because we are taking place a bit closer to the prequels than the High Republic. So hopefully we have enough referencing of the High Republic, but we're not leaning on it narratively to support our story. I would like to think that our story stands on its own.
Hi, Leslye. I'm Gustavo from Trial of the Force. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. My question also has to do with the High Republic. But before getting into the High Republic, Star Wars has, I think, been known a little bit for being slower to embrace diversity in it, not just its casting, but also in the stories it tells about diversity. Through the High Republic and that publishing effort, we have seen a lot of diversity with the characters that are finally introduced, be it with their races or their sexualities, but also the stories that we tell about them. With The Acolyte, how do you embrace that ethos that the High Republic publishing effort has done to not just bring in diverse characters, but also to tell diverse stories?
Well, I hope that if you're a Star Wars fan, my hope is that you will notice the different elements of Star Wars that we have brought, other Star Wars media that we have brought into The Acolyte. We're referencing the High Republic with the design of the robes, with including the character of Renester Grow. I think that we're definitely referencing Clone Wars when we explore the witches and the coven that Jodie Turner-Smith leads. So there's that. I think a lot of the fact that we're using practical elements, we're using real sets, that really, I think, lends itself to the original trilogy. And then where the Jedi are in their trajectory is very close to what ends up happening to them in The Phantom Menace. So hopefully we're merging a lot of those storylines to feel more diverse and hopefully exciting because of that.
Hi, Leslye. Jason of This Dad Reads here. This is a big moment, like we've been saying, for the Star Wars book community. I just want to know, what message do you have for the High Republic book fans out there in anticipation of the release of The Acolyte?
Oh, I want to say I love you. Thank you for investing in a world and an era that I think is so new. And I definitely had that experience working on Acolyte. You're diving into something that isn't referencing the live action canon or the Skywalker saga. So you're willing to dive in at a particular entry point and enjoy the stories of the Jedi and what George created in a different context. So I would hope that you have a similar similar experience watching The Acolyte. Sorry. My mouth is really dry. Okay.
Thanks for chatting with us. William Devereaux from the Ion Canon podcast. George Lucas loved symmetry and parallels in Star Wars. In many ways, The Acolyte feels like a reflection of the Phantom Menace, kind of as you alluded to earlier, from the use of the Force to create life, to the Jedi testing process, eventually admitting an older child to be trained as a Jedi. And of course, twins are a Star Wars staple. I'm assuming this was intentional. If so, how did you balance drawing the parallels to the Phantom Menace and other films without making it feel too similar?
It was difficult, for sure. You want to hit all the particular tropes that make something feel Star Wars. Like I said, those practical sets, the familial clashing, the struggle between master apprentice, father daughter, sister sister. All of those things, I think, are elements of George's stories. Ahsoka and Anakin, Luke and Anakin, Obi-Wan and Anakin. I was hoping to embody that particular, all of those particular tropes and elements. It was daunting. Hopefully we've achieved it in a way that feels both fresh, but also very reverent to what George has created.
Hi, Leslye. It's Charlotte and Caitlin from Skytalkers. So great to talk with you today. You recently said in an interview that the episode The Wrong Jedi from the Clone Wars was a favorite and provided some inspiration to the Acolyte. What was it about that episode that stayed with you and maybe found its way into the Acolyte?
Well, there are two elements of that episode that I think show up in the Acolyte. First of all, the wrongful accusation of a character that they've committed a crime, a really horrible crime that they didn't do. So there's definitely that element. It's one of the things that starts the story off. And then the other thing that I love about that episode is Ahsoka's choice to leave the Order, which is something I hadn't really tuned into as like an option that someone could do. So I loved the idea that Osha has left the Order and sort of created a life for herself outside of that identity. So those were the two things from that episode that I was extremely inspired by.
Hello, Leslye. You work closely with Neil Scanlon and the Critch Cantina team at Pinewood to create all kinds of really, really cool stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that process?
Oh, absolutely. Neil embraced me immediately, which I was so grateful for. He was very supportive of my ideas and my requests. He does so much. When you get to work with him, whether it was the mask with that element of horror with the smile. That was something that we worked on for a really long time in terms of how to construct it. The character of Basil was someone that I said, I want to do this with a guy in a suit like the old days. I don't want this to be a CGI character. What do you think? How can we execute it? And he worked so hard for months on creating the design of that character, making that character work. The droid Pip was so much fun to work with. Amandla would joke that it was like a little Mercedes Benz in her pocket because every time she was done with a take, they would come and take it from her because it was so it was remote controlled by a puppeteer who was excellent and actually worked with Amandla in rehearsals so that the character felt very much like so that the droid felt very much like a character. So yeah, Neil was instrumental in all of that.
Hi there, Dan's there from Coffee with Kenobi. Looking forward to seeing what everyone thinks about the Acolyte, as I'm sure you are. And now this question, I don't want to spoil anything, so bear with me. What can you share about May's mission to kill Jedi without the use of a lightsaber? Because it is a unique fighting choice. What inspired that decision creatively?
The choice for May to attack Jedi without a weapon was to put a new spin on how you would attack a Jedi. Meaning this is a time period where not a lot of people are running around with a lightsaber unless you're a Jedi. And so therefore attacking a Jedi without a weapon would be a daunting task and something that would hopefully intrigue the audience.
Hey, this is Sarah with Skywalking Through Neverland, and you talked about all the inspirations of Star Wars that you're trying to involve in this show. Well, music is a huge thing that connects Star Wars, and I just wondered, is there a specific point in the narrative that you directed the composer, Michael Abels, to use any particular Star Wars themes or sounds or instrumentation to further that connection?
I didn't really start out giving any direction to Michael. He's brilliant. He's a Pulitzer Prize-winning musician. He obviously worked on Jordan Peele's films, which is how I just, was introduced to him. There was an element in the show that I felt needed to feel like John Williams, but also had to have an eerier, darker edge to it to tie into the tone of the show. Initially, I didn't really give him a lot of direction. It was more once we got into specific cues that I would say I would give certain direction. Like this just doesn't feel, very Star Warsy to me. Or he would say, I think this is a really huge moment because a lightsaber is being pulled out, and I would say, yeah, but it's the bad guy pulling out a lightsaber. So, and we would kind of have those really spirited conversations about how to execute, or how to support choices that were elements of Star Wars that we've seen before, but be specifically in his perspective and voice and point of view as a composer.
Thank you, Leslye.
All right, that was our interview with Leslye Headland. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know if you can hear the desperation in our voices during the interview, in Charlotte's voice, the nervousness.
No, I think I was probably
you
really
nailed
steady.
it. Although I'll be honest, I can't really remember what anyone said because I was so stressed.
Right.
But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our little airport Leslye Headland roundtable interview. Again, the Acolyte comes out June 4th. We are really excited about it. We think you guys are really going to like it. There's so much food for thought in the Acolyte as far as we've seen, as many episodes as we've seen so far. So we think you guys are really going to enjoy it. There's going to be a lot to talk about.
So much.
Yeah. The Jedi, they're Jediing. And we're going to
The Force, it's forcing.
The Force, it's forcing. The lightsabers, they're sabering.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, we are excited to talk about it. But thank you guys as always. And if you want to talk to us more about the Acolyte or any crazy places you've done an interview, you can find us on Twitter, X at Skytalkers Pod, or our personal handles. Charlotte's is at Clarity. Mine is at Caitlin Plusher. We also have our website, skytalkers.com, our TikTok, Instagram, Facebook website. Those are all good places to find us. You can head over to those to see pictures from the premiere and also pictures of our interview setup, which might be more of a draw, honestly. So head on over there to check them out. And if you have a couple minutes and would like to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we would really appreciate it. It helps other people find the show. And if you're interested in other ways to support us and ways to join our amazing Discord community, especially as the Acolyte is kickstarting, especially as the Acolyte is premiering, we always have active discussions as soon as episodes drop in our Discord. So if you want to be a part of that and other benefits from our Patreon, you can head on over to our Patreon and check out those reward tiers there.
I want to say a huge thank you to these patrons:
Kara, Paul, Imbecilius, Emma, Jose, Justin, Christina, Nick, Nina, Megan, Linda, Tom, Alexa, Charlotte, Molly, Kelly, Anna, Allison, and Eugene. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Thank you guys so much. And until next time, may the force be with you.
May the force be with you.